1996 with the United News of India, UNI. Her reportage on the Northeast began in the Hindu after she won the Inclusive Media Fellowship of the Center for Development Studies, CSDS, in 2011 to write a series on the loss of livelihood due to annual erosion in Assam's Majuli island on the Brahmaputra river. A rare chance to utilize the digital space for news about the Northeast from a New Delhi newsroom led her to join The Wire. In 2017, she received the Ramnath Goenka Excellence in Journalism Award for feature writing. Her English translation of Sahitya Akademi award-winning Assamese writer Rita Chowdhury's novel Mayabritta is slated for publication in 2020. I can hear some noise, Sangeeta. Just mute your. Yeah, now it's fine. Now it's fine.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay.
Now it's fine. Yeah. So welcome, Sangeeta. In fact,
thank you so much.
I still remember in 2015, I had visited Golaghat. I had met your parents, and I had gone for a very special occasion. That was the 35th anniversary of the weekly newspaper called Saptahik Dhansiri, or we call it Hoptahik Dhansiri. So Dhansiri is a river that flows through the small town called Golaghat, where Sangeeta hails from. And this weekly newspaper is the mouthpiece of the people of Golaghat district. And your father, Apurva Barooah, he had told me that he has a huge responsibility on his shoulders. He had promised Padma Shri Syed Abdul Malik, who was the founder editor of this newspaper, that just a few days before he had died in the year 2000, that he will not let this paper die. He will keep this paper alive. So, and your father had been true to his promise. So, I think it's very interesting. You grew up in a household that ran a newspaper. For a journalist, I think that's indeed a privilege. And I would really like to know how was it like growing up in a family that edited a newspaper, interactors, and I don't know how. Can you just explain how was the environment, and did it inspire you to be a journalist?
Okay.
So
thank you so much, Teresa. Yeah, for making me a part of this interesting Thumbprint conversation. So before I go into your question, I would also like to talk a little bit about you. I mean, like, yeah. So some of you, been watching also perhaps already know that Teresa is a multiple award-winning journalist based in Northeast India. And she's worked in the national media of the WASH Media Awards 2009-2010. She also bagged the Ramnath Goenka Award consecutively for 2 years, 2008 to 2009, 2009 to 2010, for the category reporting on Northeast and J&K in the print section. Her other honors include the Ladli Media Award for Gender Sensitivity in 2011, the Sanskriti Award in 2009 for Excellence in Journalism, and the 7th Sarojini Naidu Prize in 2007 for Best Reporting on Panchayati Raj by the Hunger Project. And she also featured in the Power List of Femina magazine in 2011. Isn't that great? And she's written 3 books that include The Mothers of Manipur, which was brought out by Zuban Books, and recently Bulletproof. We have the same publishers in Penguin Random House India. So thank you, Teresa, once again. But to come back to your question, yes, it was such a I actually, yeah, what you said is like it's a privilege, to be around. And but journalism, of course, even the how a paper is published has changed a lot. But when it comes to publishing smaller newspapers, which my father's paper is a very small newspaper, and it's also a Saptahik newspaper, which is a weekly thing. And weekly newspapers, are hardly there actually. There was a time when we were growing up, there was Ganatantra which was brought out from Nagaon. It's still running,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's also a very significant history, that paper. But so there were a couple of papers in Upper Assam like that, which were brought out as weeklies. But nowadays we don't hear much about them. So that actually was also a phase of in Assam's journalism journey. So as you said, Abdul Malik was a very close friend of my father then, and used to come home. And he also felt that we need a paper, our own paper. And there was Janambhumi, of course, which used to come out from Jorhat, and a daily. But there was a need for something to come out of Golaghat too. Many people felt that at that time. And why not a weekly then? And which would have lot of other in-depth articles. Even, it's a kind of a platform for the local people to also publish their creative writing. A lot of poetry, a lot of short stories were also published there, as a kind of a dharavahik, the kind of a serialized thing. So they did all of that. But what I saw was, the how a paper actually is put together. That was I got to see that very early on, and I always felt that this is possible. This is possible. So that whole possibility, that sense of possibility, that I saw very early on. And the other thing is also my father involved all of us. We were in school then, so he would always toss at us some of those things that he think should go, but he would not tell us his own opinion, and he'd say, can you just go through this and tell me whether I should publish or not? Okay. And some of those things I actually had translated. I had a lot of from early on I had interest in the English language, so I would always like to translate stuff. So I would do it to translate a lot of these poetries and even normal reports, news reports into English. Never got published or anything because there was no platform. So, but I always did that, So which I feel is that had given me that base, that much required base, very very early on, and I'm very very grateful to my father for that.
And how was it like? They used to copy paste and they used to measure with the, those the old system. Can you describe that
No,
old
no, no.
system? Which
It was like each letter was put together. And see, in a vernacular, it is not just the letters. It's also the akar, ikar, everything. So there was a time, when I was say ninth standard or something, I used to there used to be all these women, who would sit on these in front of a table with lot of these. The table would have their own compartments, which will have, say, akar, ikar, everything, all their entire gamut of alphabet, all the elements, and they would pick, and after each letter is put, you have to put a space, and then there would be a space, as something that you need to put as a spacing thing, So I learned that it's almost like knowing how to type, like people used to, in my time, used to go to typing schools to learn typing, which I had done myself. So, so I learned that very early on. So that helped me also when I came to Delhi, I wanted to learn how a big paper comes out, and nobody was ready to give me that opportunity or that exposure. And thankfully, I managed at that time to convince the news editor of the National Herald, which has a very huge, very significant history, but at that time it was not doing very well. So they wanted another pair of free hands, you know. So I said, okay, that's my opportunity. So that's when I actually learned how a big paper comes out. So the how a small paper in a small little town comes out to how a paper, which has a very significant history, is being brought out in Delhi's ITO. So that really, you know, I think brought the both the twains together. Yeah.
So that in a way sums up your journey from Golaghat to Delhi.
Right.
So
Yeah, that was early 1994. 1994, I think I finished my college. So yeah, early 1990. Yeah.
So how was that journey? You know, you as you said, you were transformed into a big world of, you know, big media. All of a sudden, everything is so big, you know. So this whole journey, your journey as a journalist, you know, can you just tell us, you know, what are the kind of challenges that you faced, and how difficult
Challenges,
was
I
it
think.
to be from a small town?
These are
You
challenges
know,
I think anybody would face. Nothing very significant, but yes, they were significant in a sense that first problem I had was that I had no understanding of Hindi. You know, now I speak Hindi very fluently, but 25 years ago, I just didn't know it at all. It was very difficult for me to
okay.
negotiate the streets and also to talk to people, even in the press and all. They would use only Hindi, even though it was an English paper. So it was very difficult. And the other things I found was also, you know, uh, you grow up in a, you are conditioned in a certain way. You grow up with your own, you know, your own culture, your own language, and so much that you can call your own, you know. And you
And your
suddenly
own
you
newspaper. And your own
and suddenly
newspaper.
you feel displaced, you know, and nobody in
Hmm.
your new environment knows about your history, your culture, your people, you know, and everything is like it's so new and novel to them. And you sometimes think, you know, I used to think, you know, where do I start, you know, and that and also I don't fit in as in terms of how I look, you know, the looks were also very different, you know. So that itself was a bit of a thing, you know. People would always ask you, "आप कहाँ से हैं? आपका family क्या China से है?" All those things that happened with me literally, you know. And now many things have changed, but those days it was like that. It was very difficult, and I used to be very conscious that even after my work hours, you know, like which is get over at like 11 or something or 10:30, I would even if it get over at 8, I would wait for the office transport to drop me back because I never felt very safe in Delhi roads then because how I look perhaps and also because I was not very comfortable with Hindi. So those things were the problems that lot of us when we the people who came to us to Delhi at that time faced. But apart from that, in journalism, what I faced was also that what I thought I knew about Assam politics, Northeast politics, didn't matter at all because nobody would cover that. You know, they would have stringers and say correspondence of it, but that those stories were what they wanted. They never wanted to. They want say an Assamese author or anybody else, say a Manipuri author, anyone or a cultural artist. You know, so those spaces were not there for them and so therefore not for us, you know. So we had to learn in Hindu. When I went to Hindu in 1990 in 2001, even then, you know, I joined Hindu. I was one of the first people to have you know, to be part of the features department that started in Delhi. The Delhi didn't have teachers section at that time, so we were the first people. And even then, you know, we had to all the things that we did was actually not from the Northeast. The featured whoever we featured. So this is a very new development that we see now. That lot of things from lot of Northeast stories and all that we see now in national media. And I must thank online news media for that too. They have actually brought in a big, huge change. And there's a reason for that because always the print and television media have always not wanted to cover anything extra because of the lack of space, time. But that's not a problem for online media. So we should be thankful. People from the Northeast should be thankful to online media, that we now have got that space.
Yeah. Yes, internet has indeed opened up a lot of possibilities. And
Correct.
Yeah, if you go back to your past and your childhood, uh, about I was really fascinated by the newspaper and the way people, especially women, how women came out to write for that newspaper. And I don't know, I think they still do, and there are many women
Yes.
reporters as well. So and then and that seemed like a very safe space. But then again you step into the big city, big no, the national capital, Delhi. And then did you ever feel that you were stepping into a very masculine terrain,
Of course, I
journalism?
still do.
Yeah.
I still do. Yeah. When I remember when I joined the United News of India in 1996, I was the first person, not just from Assam, but from the Northeast, a woman to be hired at their New Delhi headquarters. A year and a half later, there was another woman who was hired from Manipur, and we both were there in the Delhi office. So that was also some breaking of barriers at that time. This happened only 25, 26 years ago. We had nobody. So you and I had people at an office in Delhi, in Guwahati, but nobody in their Delhi office. So this was no one, yeah, from that region. So that was something. And but aside from what we faced in Delhi, which was like, a lot of people share those stories. But what I find is even now in Assam or in many parts of Northeast, because I cover the region and I travel very often to all these states, whenever as a woman who want to say, you're very clued in when it comes to, say, political matters, which are considered to be very masculine spaces. So still, so I have actually come across questions like, are you really interested in joining politics? That kind of thing people would ask. I don't know how many of my male counterparts have faced those questions. Okay, so perhaps they look at me only first as a woman. That how is this woman so clued in about what is happening? Perhaps. So, but that, when I have to tell them that as a journalist, we have to do our homework. I mean, like, it's not just a woman or a man thing. So that was very much, very, it was revealing for me. I mean, like, firsthand, had faced this. Yeah. Not that I never knew this, not that, I mean, like, it existed and still does. So that was something I faced. Now a lot of things have changed, but initially, even in I was encouraged to, while we are five of us, we were hired that year, and I was the only woman, and the other four were actually by then doing political reporting. But I was sent only for the soft stories to women's issues or, meet cultural, some entities, that kind of thing. So that even in a space like you and I, they were promoting that. And then when I joined the Hindu also, the entire cultural section of Hindu had about 98% of them are only women. Okay. So very few, one or two ekadukka, there will be men. Okay. The Chennai entire office, the huge setup, everybody was a woman. Okay. So that tells a story, isn't it? I mean, that is that like, why are so many women, there? Because they would be finishing their jobs, say, locking up their pages, say, maximum by 8 or 7:30 in the evening, and go home. It's like maybe next best job after a teacher job, perhaps. So that tells the story. But this has changed now. I see a lot of young colleagues of mine at The Wire now, very young, fiery, very bright people, and they don't think twice before speaking out if something that they feel is wrong. If they're in terms of gender. And I also see a lot of young people, a lot of young male colleagues of them being very, very supportive than what we had got. So So I think there's a shift that is happening, and all for good.
Okay. And let's come back to reporting Northeast India. You said, with this online portals and everything, now Northeast gets a lot of space. So,
Correct.
and you are based in Delhi, and when you look at the Northeast from Delhi, sitting in Delhi, uh, do you feel that you understand the region enough? Do you feel,
Mm.
how challenging is it?
It's an
uh, uh,
extremely, it's a beautiful question, Teresa, and because we need to deal with this question. See, when you see, even from New Delhi's point of view, the gaze is what? Northeast as one block. But
hmm,
the people of the Northeast look at themselves as separate blocks. That is the
hmm,
first problem that you see in the entire New Delhi Northeast relations. So if you cover the Northeast from Delhi and you look at the region from that gaze itself, I think you really miss out a lot. And that was the first lesson I learned. And that was the first thing I always keep in mind when I travel. And the complexity, nobody can say that they understand the region very well, till this. In the sense that there's so many complexities and the community relations, the languages play a big role, the customs, so many things are there, and plus the conflict. And there's a
hmm,
whole the genesis of the conflict. To get that genesis, you have to keep all of this in mind, what
hmm,
has happened. And for people, their histories are so important, they just
hmm,
hold on to their histories, and
hmm,
so they don't, if they see any deviation, anything, they will not agree. They will like, it's a huge problem for them. So
hmm,
these histories are very, very important for each community I see, that. And in order to, and if as a journalist also, I feel that I have to understand those histories, those nuances in the histories, to be
hmm,
able to tell a story well. That I
hmm,
have always kept in mind. It's not easy at all, at all. Even for
hmm,
people, I see a lot of journalists who are, say, placed in Mani Imphal, or say in Aizawl or in Guwahati, but they would know a lot more about what is happening in New Delhi, but they would not know, what is happening in their neighboring states.
hmm,
That is also another thing I have noticed. If you
hmm,
ask somebody what is happening today, like somebody I call up, say someone in Guwahati, and I say, what is today's news in Imphal? He would just not be able to tell you, but he
hmm,
would be able to tell you what is happening in New Delhi. So that is
hmm,
something I feel needs to change. Needs to
hmm,
change.
hmm. And this whole insider outsider thing within the Northeast, like I have been accused of being a parachute journalist. Though I am from the Assam, I consider myself a hardcore Northeasterner, but I have been said, there were accusations that I am a parachute journalist. So, though, and that was quite a shock for me. So I feel that this whole there's so many differences. I think these differences integrate us, in the Northeast. This is something which unites us. We are so different, and yeah, I think there's no
No, you were
end to
right,
what.
actually. Yeah, no,
There's
see,
no.
this is what,
Hmm,
yeah, how I look at it, this whole parachute thing and all that, is that, if you tell a story really well, okay, it becomes very difficult for them, for anybody to question that. But still, people may do. Why do they do? Because there have never been opportunities of various communities to tell their own stories. That is
hmm,
something I always come across that. If I go to, say, I go to Imphal, I get a different story. But say I go to Chirachandpur, okay, it's only 70 kilometers from Imphal, straight down, okay.
hmm,
But there I feel a lot of people saying, we don't get to hear our stories, our sides, nothing in national media, or nothing in Imphal media, or it's same thing in Assam. If you just go to meet certain people in Guwahati itself, you get a different story. But you go into the villages or various things during the NRC update thing, I have it just was on my, it was so palpable that people say our stories are not told, our side is not told, because the history is such, the history of the region is such that almost all stakeholders have been both a victim and a perpetrator, at least in each other's eye. So as a journalist, I have always felt that responsibility that I need to bring in all sides in. I'm not the negotiator here, but I'm only the storyteller. So I have to bring in new things. So that is what I feel. But I completely understand what you were saying, this whole parachute thing. It is also because they feel that, it's us, we have the first right to tell our story. Okay. And I think that will also change in a way that if I see now, at least in the national media, a lot of young people from different communities across the Northeast are coming and joining, and doing their reportage, writing. I always make an effort now, when even in the wire, that if somebody from the community wants to tell a story, let's try and do that. Okay. But many times we cannot, but many times we can. So wherever we can, we should. Okay. So that is something. So I think that once that happens, lot of things will also go away, because it comes, what this whole parachute things comes from it's from that angst that has existed for a long period of time, the angst of a border people, of people from a borderland. So that is where the whole thing is. And particularly I feel this whole parachute journalist thing comes also because if you are a national media journalist, that is something, it doesn't matter whether you are from the Northeast or anything, you are reporting for national media. So they feel that, you just can't drop in and just do this, They always feel that these national media outlets have not reported their stories well. I understood that, when I was covering this NRC thing and in Assam and all that, it was so palpable. And it is from all sections, all communities. They had that. I sensed that in them, So that's why a lot of people would say, you talk to this journalist, but you don't talk to that journalist. I said, this cannot happen, Journalist is a journalist. You have to tell your stories, your part of the story too. And we're here to hear your part of the story. And we are only taking those stories to people. That's what our job. That's the only job we have. We are the messenger. Okay. So that whole thing, I think it will come to it'll die down over years. But you are right. This is very much there, very, very much there. Even if you write a book, okay, there are a lot of people also are very in films. You just see recently what has happened to Khargonka's film. A lot of people had so much anger against the guy who belongs to the region. They said, this is not our story. You cannot tell our story like this. Look at the anger all over. Okay, why is that? It's because
and it's just a fictionalized account. It's not even
and a fictionalized account. Okay, so a lot of people have so much angst, so much anger, so much disappointment. This is what is this? This is the disappointment of a large section of people from borderland who always felt that New Delhi hasn't listened to us properly. But the interesting thing, which I find it very, very interesting now, is that a lot of young people are engaging with the question, and they're seeing also within themselves, not just outside, but within. This whole thing will bring out something very good. That's what I feel. Yeah, I'm very hopeful.
So let's come back to your book, Assam, The Accord, the Discord.
Correct.
Yeah, so tell us something about the making of your book. It has a lot of interesting anecdotes, lot of so many things which probably were never in public domain. They were maybe part of drawing room discourse, somebody talking, those addas, but never in a public discourse. So but in the course of writing that book, was it also does it also reflect on your journey into the syncretic Assam that you grew up in? Like we were discussing in the morning. So can you just tell us about the making of this book?
Correct. Yeah, see, the whole thing was when I was doing stories on NRC, Assam Accord, and all that. Obviously, it took us back to what was there in that, what happened during that period. I came to Delhi you know, in the 90s. So because there was so much of you know, the army activities, so much of the insurgency period at that time. You know, I belonged to Golaghat, and we had every other day there would be certain incidents, and you know, in your own personal life also, it was very much there. I mean, you go to a small little town. It was, I mean, like, you take your car and go to the market, but before you enter your house, you know, there would be a Sariali, you know, a crossing where the army would stop you and check each and everything that is going inside your house. And I remember my mother walking down, you know, leaving the driver there, said, whenever it is done, you just bring it home, you know, the car and the stuff home. You know, those are everyday living we had. But we were lucky also that whoever could were sending, those families were sending their children out. I see that now among the Kashmiris, you know. So I look at with a lot of these young Kashmiri youth with with a lot of empathy, you know. So they're all over now. They're outside of the region, all over, getting admission in various institutions across the country. Why? Because parents want to protect them, you know. That I saw very early on, you know, even Assam and all the rest of Northeast also is like that, you know. So people want to send their children out because there's nothing much happening there. It's a reality, you know, of our lives in the Northeast. So at that the, you know, when I started thinking of that, you know, that we don't have a book in English, you know, and because people, a lot of my lot of my colleagues in Delhi newsrooms would call me and ask, hey, what happened that time? What is this? What is this? You know, like people would ask if the base year is January 1st, 1966, why are then where does 1971 come from? March 23, 1971 come from? So these were questions that I needed answers to, you know. So that led me to think that I need to do something. And that was the time when Penguin got in touch with me and said, why not you do that? Why not you fill in that? And that's when I realized that we actually, after so many years, the accord was signed in 1985, we never had a book by a mainstream publisher. So whom should we question then? It is only us we have to question. That we never told our story. We have to tell our story. I learned that very early, you know, when I was in Delhi. I got in touch with Mamuni Roysam Goswami. Mamuni Baidu was you know, she influenced a lot of young people at that time who were in Delhi. And I'm very privileged to be one of those people, you know. And so she told me, you know, said that, Sangeeta, our history is not told. So whenever you have conversations with people, you have to tell people about our history, you know. So she used to always tell us this, you know. So I really owe her a lot. When I look back now, I just see that she was actually the first person to have sown that seed in me to take pride in Assam's history, in the Northeastern history, even if it is not taught. Okay. So she said, you have to tell, somebody has to tell. So that is where it was always there in the back of my mind, that whenever, if at all I write any book, it will be non-fiction. My aim is not to tell the best story. I would be very happy if somebody really questions some of the things and churns out a better book, because that will lead to then a lot more books in English, you know, because we have very few in books in English from the entire Northeast. Okay, so it is upon the all the generation that we have now, you know, entire Northeast, that we need to tell our stories and tell it in a language that others also understand. Okay, it is very important. So that was the genesis of it. But when I went and met lot of people, I didn't come across a single person who said, I'm not going to give you time. Everybody wanted the story to be told. And so I really felt I was actually privileged, you know. Everybody, whoever I went to, and gave me time, lot of information. You would call up on their own and she said, you asked me this, you know, that day I didn't have an answer, but today I actually found this, you know, and I want to send it to you. You know, everybody, even the ASU leaders, you know, Profula Manta, everyone. Biraj Sharma also helped me a lot, and but he didn't live to see the book, so lot of people, Tarun Gogoi, everybody, and they just said that what they remembered, at that time, what happened, and the Nehru Memorial Library has a lot of our old stuff. So that the access to that library also really helped me a lot. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I always say this, and I have to mention here too, our books, because they are not read much by the people who use the Nehru Memorial Library, the most of them are kept in the in the godown. Okay, so which is not accessed by everybody. So it's very interesting. So and when I told them that these books are there with you, but it's not there in the normal spaces where people use, so the chief librarian said, okay, so I'll give access to you to do that. So I used to sit there for hours, from morning till evening, and then you'll see all these rats moving in there, so and and a woman would keep coming, after an hour or so, are you fine, do you need anything, so that kind of thing, because I was in the middle of these books, the precious books, about my religion, so I felt so at home there, so this was a special feeling. But I also noticed that very few people read books on the Northeast, generally, the people who use that library. And with that, why I mentioned this is also because that library is one of the topmost libraries on social history in the world. So that's why I feel that we need to have, it's a responsibility on us to be able to write as much as possible in English language, and also to talk about our stories. It's very, very important. And the other thing, coming to the syncretic culture, yes, I felt that at every moment, that I also grew up in a place, I have to mention this. My grandmother was was a widow, a very young widow, and lived all her life like that. And so for her, the temple and everything was very important. I think she drew a lot of courage from that, from that belief in God and all that. So, but she also taught us, that first, a person has to be a human being. That is what you have to look at. If the person is not a good human being, the other abilities or the other things and don't count much. I mean, a person cannot be a good husband, cannot be a good human being, cannot be a good Ohomia, or cannot be a good Indian citizen, cannot be anything actually if the person is not a good human being. So that is something, and she always taught us. And we have this house, this huge sprawling house in Golaghat, and we have a temple which is over 100 years old. And next to the temple, we had this what is called in Assam Bharaghor. Okay, it's a rented place for a house for renting purpose. So when we were kids, in that house there was a Muslim widow who lived in that house. Three of her children all have become now very top Assam bureaucrats. But those days they were studying there. And so that lady was also a widow, like my grandmother. So they developed a very strong bond, And when she died, when my grandmother died, she was one of the few people who gave, Ganga Jal to my grandmother, and really prayed and kept saying Durga, Durga, save her, save my friend. All these things I have seen, I mean, and they were they were family from Dhubri. So when I travel to Dhubri now, I always look for such grandmothers. They're there. Okay, so this is what we grew up with, and so this is never so it's such a part of the Assamese culture. And I also realized when I was writing this book that Assamese community is a very unique community. I need to mention this, in the Assam, in the Indian map today, which community, you tell me, has comprises of caste Hindus, tribals, Muslims, Christians, non-believers, all coming together? It is all this caste Hindu and the tribal mix. Okay, the religion going over again. I mean, like all these things that I saw was, I was very, very conscious of that fact, that this is the Assamese society. And then the other thing I came across is that, people with different kinds of faces. They're very Aryan faces, they're very tribal faces, they are very mixed kind of faces with small eyes but very pointed nose. All kinds of people who call themselves Assamese and Khati Ohomia. Okay, like pure Assamese. So what does that mean? That means that the Assamese, the composition of who is Assamese is actually from that an amalgamation of lot of people. Okay, if you read, say, Nogen Hoikia's book, I feel a lot of people, I think people should read, whoever can read Assamese, Ohomia Manhor Itiha, which came out in 2013. That book is so important, because it talks about who is an Assamese, and the roots, the migratory roots that all were that passed through Assam, and even for music lovers, look at the lyrics of the Bhupen Hazarika song Mahabahu Brahmaputra. What does it talks about the heritage of the people who live by the side of the Brahmaputra. That is us. That is us. So it is upon all generations. On my generation now, and the younger people, everybody, that we need to protect this. We need to highlight and protect this uniqueness of our own people. That came out very strongly when I was doing my research for the book. Even when I was going through the older letters to the Prime Minister, older, Gauhati, the memorandums that people were bringing out, in Assam, all of those things, it was very, very clear. And that was a lesson for me. That was a lesson for me, because we don't read our history, so we don't know very too many things. So when I was going through this whole research process, the process of researching for the book, this is something that I drew from it very strongly, and I think it will remain with me throughout.
And you have reported extensively on the NRC, and so how has that been? What kind of an what are the nuances that you discovered about this exercise in Assam, and how do you see this prospect of this All India NRC?
All India NRC, I don't know whether it's like, will happen, or whether it is just a, kind of a political thing, So I don't know whether how it is going to happen, because there's nothing new. It's nothing is happening. It's not moving. Okay. So that is what. But what I see in NRC in Assam is that, a lot of things are also very highly politicized at the moment. And it is, but what I learned from my moving around in the ground was that it can't be seen, the story can't be seen only politically. You have to see it from the humanity angle also. A lot of things from Assam history also, and also of a people of a borderland. Okay, where they have lot of where they felt that lot of these issues, lot of these things were not handled properly earlier. So this is a very strong component. So that also needs to be addressed. Okay, it's that it's not that people are just saying things just like that, so there are all sections have to be heard. That is what I felt. But yes, when it comes to but there is a question. If you say and now declare so many people are not citizens, then what is the solution? People will also have to think of a solution. You cannot be just another window to another conflict. We have faced conflict for a long period of time. And look what has conflict done to the entire region, I mean, with so much of potential. Look at a lot of young people who have come out to outside of the state, and each one is doing well. So we have so much of talent, so it is that the region has to catch up. So it has to catch up. And but if for very only for political reasons, if you keep burning something, it's not going to give the people anything or the land anything. Okay, there's so much else that needs to be handled and talked about. So that is what I feel, that if this is like so much of so many say now a certain number is out of the NRC. So obviously no processes began so far to also see whether they are the genuine people who should be outside of it, or will just without because they don't have documents, so that's why they are out. So that process has not began. So after the process happens, even if there are like say 3 or 4 lakh people left, so what will be done to them? How do you handle that? So state also is not talking about it, and so as the society will also have to think about that. What do we need to do then? What should happen? Okay, so there should be. So then, what needs to be done? Of course, the discussions have to happen. Stakeholders have to talk. So those things I feel will have to happen at some point, and there will have to be a give and take. There will have to be a give and take, because in a land like Assam, where if I would like to again go back to Bhupen Hazarika's song Mahabahu Brahmaputra, which actually mentions Tagore and says that kisu dibo lage, kisu lobo lage, jinja bole hole. So that's a very, very clue, very important clue to the Assam problem. I always look at that as a very important clue, and it has the key. It has the key. That song, I always feel, has the key.
Yeah,
Teresa, why I mentioned this is also because Assam's culture, Assam's culture is very, very, it's not just nothing. It is very little to do with religion. It's a lot to do with people. Like in Bihu, we have Husori. We also say Hey Hori, Hey Ram. But it's not from a very religion point of view. It's from the cultural aspect. Like I have a lot of my friends who are Assamese Muslims and all. They would always, if I say something very unbelievable, they'll say, "Hey, Hori," they just say this. And I myself say things like, "Enikwa manu Hey Ram," I'm like, but it's not from a very religious point, but a cultural point of view. So that is why I said that all music, all these things are the key to our problem.
And so I think we are almost running out of time. So what are your future plans? Are you working on another book?
Certainly, certainly. I've taken this up as a kind of a task that I've given to myself, that whatever I can, I would like to write in English, particularly about my people. And before going into Northeast to talk about other stories, I want to tell stories of Assam. It's very important for me. I again would like to refer to Mamuni Baidu, So when she was leaving for Assam, so she called me, she said, come and meet me. So, and I did a story at the time for her on her journey to as the Hindu. So at the time, so she told me, so I asked her, I said, why are you going just like that? You can always come back, no? So she said, no, I have to, because it's time that I tell the story of this Boro woman, Theng Pakri. So she said, you know what? If we had kept records, this would have been a non-fiction. But today I have to create a fiction around this woman who existed. So this tells us a big story that it's upon all of us, you, me, everybody, whoever is willing to do this, that we need to tell our stories before it gets lost. Before somebody has to really go finding the traces of it. We may find, we may not find. Okay, so this is something I really feel that I have to do. In whichever way. I'm not aiming to write the best book, and I don't claim to write any best book. I want actually to provoke people to write another book, perhaps in that subject. Yeah. So that is when we have a considerable gamut of book, the Northeast, and I think this consciousness is happening not just in Assam. It's happening across the Northeast also. A lot of young people are also feeling that who are we? What is it in us? Yeah. So we have a lot of, even if I talk about journalists, we have, I mean, like, and women journalists. Look at the kind of women journalists, the seniors that we have. If we have to keep looking at, I mean, like, I have to keep thinking. I have to really think hard to find someone say, who's a woman and an editor of a newspaper or a news magazine. In the rest of India, in say mainstream India, I have to really think. But I don't have to think about that when I have to talk about women journalists from the Northeast. I mean, we already have so much. Okay, we already have so much, and against trying circumstances. So this is something to be celebrated. This is something to be celebrated, to be worked on further, and give to people, showcase to people who we are. Beyond the exotic dances and all the other things that we actually show to people, in our various Northeast festivals. They're also important, but we have to go beyond it. We have to engage people with our literature, with our stories that we will tell, our side of the story. So that is my little aim.
In fact, when you said that, you had to go down of the Nehru Memorial Library to get the
Correct.
books on Assam and Northeast, or the documents, so it just, made me feel like, it's almost like a metaphorical thing. Like, the region is like an attic, the region is like an attic. You don't go there quite often, and sometimes when you go there, it's like there's some disastrous reason for that. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's like left to
Yeah, who
fend
would
for
know it better than you? I mean, you've done a lot of these
so you're
reportage.
left to
Yeah,
fend for yourself. And so it's time we bring those books and documents out to the front shelves, and
correct.
it's time that people start reading about the region and writing about the region.
Yeah,
So
I also quickly add, it's time also to translate some of our beautiful works, not just in Assam, but the rest of Northeast also. Translate what has been published in local languages to English, something. And like you mentioned, Syed Abdul Malik. He's a Padma Bhushan, but I don't know whether a single book of him has actually been translated to English. This is this is something as we as a community will also have to think. I mean, he was the president of the Ahom Haitahaba. There are so many erudite writers that we had who had held that position as the Ahom Haitahaba president. Are there work there? Are there work there for read in another language? These are things we'll have to think.
in fact, yeah, I mean, I think we hope to I think we can expect a lot of art literature emerge from the region, and I can see a lot of people writing, and hopefully, I'm tired of this exotification of the region, and this,
I'm tired too.
the narrative that flows from the region is so boring. I mean, so now I can see a lot of changes, and hopefully, different voices air their views. And but I think we should also appreciate if what would have been your reaction if say a Manipuri would have written a book called Assam, the Accord, the Discord,
No, it is. In fact, it has been written. I mean, Pradeep Panjobam's book on the Northeast, it covers a lot of other issues also, but it does cover the Assam issue also in that book. And I quoted from that book. And so these insights are very important. I always feel that a Northeastern journalist who's placed in the region or who watches the region very closely will have a very different perspective to add to the any northeastern story. There are a lot more than someone who just has just got to know about it. So that's why I feel that these voices are very important voices, but coming from the region, that voice is I give a lot of importance to those voices. Doesn't matter whether they are from one particular state or the another. Say now the Naga issues happen. Okay. lot of conversations happening, a lot of what should happen, what shouldn't, and various things. No, it's a very old issue. But there are a lot of journalists, even from different northeastern region states who are writing on it. And those perspectives, I read each and every of those stories. For me, this is something to learn from and something to add a fresh perspective that comes. So, and obviously, I would listen to say, I would hear, take those voices a lot more seriously than someone who's writing, maybe just because they write about Kashmir. So that has also happened. A lot of people who write, say, about Kashmir on conflict issues and all that are also sometimes right on the northeast, but the issues are very different. The people are very different. The complexities are their own, nuances. So how can you just suddenly do that then? But so you have to study very closely. And I realized that that it is not that simple. It is not just a see even about the Kashmir issue. So many people from outside of Kashmir are writing. Okay, so and diverse views. So these views have to be also looked at and see. I mean, what we can learn and what we have to discard. We have to discard. People will anyway discard if it is not doesn't have any grain of truth. It will anyway discard. That's the baseline, isn't it? Yeah, that's the baseline. Yeah.
So I think we have a comment from Shivani Pukan. She says that we don't know what's happening in our neighboring state because there is no reportage in the media. Even now,
Mm.
look at how little coverage there is of the floods in Assam or the growing COVID numbers in Manipur or other states.
Mm.
Um,
Correct. Yeah,
that's true.
I
Like
completely agree.
I don't know what's happening in Mizoram right now.
Mm.
Mizoram is like totally blank. Mizoram, Tripura,
Yeah,
there's hardly anything. It's like,
yeah. Hardly anything.
uh,
Even in the Assam papers, you will not find that, which
hmm.
is
No,
regretful.
no.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, which is we all need to look at that and fill that lacuna, because a lot of, as I said, I mean, like within a matter of hours, I can reach Delhi. I can reach, say, any of the northeastern capital from Delhi. But
Hmm.
tell me how I reach from Guwahati to, say, Agartala, okay, in one day. I'll have to really, the flights are there. But the thing is that so many times the flight gets cancelled. Okay,
Hmm.
so if people then are dependent again on only on the roads. Look at the state of roads also. And then, so a lot of these things, like, see, our geography is also such. If I have to say go from Tura in Meghalaya to Shillong, now we have a road from inside, but most people go by Assam to be shorter also, and that route. Then say Arunachal, okay. Itanagar, say if somebody wants to go to say Tawang, they'll have to go
Hmm.
through Assam. So our histories, our people, our geographies, all are entangled with each other. All are somewhere or the other come and meet. And particularly also the gaze that New Delhi has on the region. It looks at only the region as a northeast one block. So we cannot not be watching each other, not be talking about each other, not be, even within Assam, I just see that many of the things, like if you ask someone, say, someone whose language is the first language is Assamese, what do Karbis eat? What do the Rabhas eat? Their main meal is, what does it comprise of? Okay, everybody eats, of course, masotena and the other thing, but what is the specific? What is the special dish? You'll find the answer would not be very easy. So these are things we have to look within now. Look also, who are we? Something always I always feel that I need to also learn those things. I mean, like, and so many of our beautiful clothes, even among women, what clothes we have, what jewelry we have, what are they called, what are they made of. So those things we need to also instill in our young people, that this is us, this is us. This whole sense of pride will have to come somewhere. And so it is upon all of us to pass that on to the younger generation, that you have to respect each other's communities, if their culture, and these are all our culture. Okay, so these are things, and also it is not just that you know that this is one particular thing which is of the Boro community or of the missing community, but why is it? What is the import? What is the thing behind it? These are things we need to also keep in mind. Like I always, recently somebody from Gauhati University, a professor, has pointed this out to me, and I completely agree that he belongs to the Rava community. So he was saying, in Assam books, he writes in Assamese. So he says, in books we found that we always find that Bihu is celebrated on the first day of Bohag, the month. Okay, the first day. But the plain stripes, they celebrate it on the first Wednesday of Bohag. These are things, we have to be aware of all these things. It is a very, very, they don't celebrate on the first of Bohag. They celebrate on the first Wednesday. It may be the first of Bohag also, but it changes according to the calendar. So these are basic things, So these all have to be brought in to our general, that idea of understanding who are we, the diversities within. This diversity is our strength. Even for the wider space, also, if you look at the Northeast, this diversity is our strength. And this diversity will only happen when you look at each other as equals. This equal thing is very, very important, I feel.
Certain things sound very idealistic as well,
Yes.
because
Politics
nowadays,
enter,
yeah, because when you're talking about diversity, like I am from Assam, I am an Assamese Muslim, but I and over the just in the past few years, I've realized that I'm also a Muslim. I never felt or never thought of myself as one. So, and then when I try to understand, oh, what about the Muslims in Northeast India? Where the whole Muslim discourse is, hijacked by the North Indian Muslims. Everything. So everyone is having biryani and everyone is speaking in Urdu, but we don't do that. We don't speak in Urdu. So this diversity, and then talking about inclusiveness, sometimes it sounds very idealistic, but when you alienate someone, you alienate your continued hate speeches and continued I don't know, the kind of coverage that's being done. But yes, of course, it's very important that we learn to celebrate. This morning I was having a discussion with one gentleman who writes about the heritage of Gauhati, and I was just telling him there are very few people who really love Gauhati. We're talking about Gauhati as a city. Gauhati as a city has never been celebrated, and there are very few people
Yeah.
who love Gauhati.
A
we,
huge
we
river passed by it,
yeah, we
a
never
huge river
appreciated
passed by
that.
it.
Yeah, and so many heritage structures have been pulled down, and nobody
Correct.
even bothered to complain or bothered to even protest.
Protect and
So
conserve, yeah.
yeah, so I think we really need to
Yeah,
take
this is a
pride in our
challenge,
cities.
Teresa. Sorry to cut you like that, but it's a challenge, These are challenges, but I always feel that if the community feels that these are things we need to protect, it'll happen. And for that, the discourses will have to happen. People will have to talk, take pride in what they have. Not see, new is good. New is really good. We should be open for new things. But the past is also very important. It's on the past we actually make our present stand, and on this present, today's present, what is happening, will the future be? So this consciousness it may sound very idealistic, but it's not. Not doable. It's a challenge, but the challenge will. And over the years, the Assamese community I've seen have faced so many challenges. Okay, during the British period, you see there was a huge challenge, but people stood up. People stood up for what they thought was correct. So, and I see that happening now, even among the younger people. I see that they are very interested in knowing who they are. It is, of course, very difficult because for a long period of time, your history is not taught, not celebrated. Okay. And so it is not very easy because most young people have also studied in English. Okay. So if you study in English, then you're at home. The home environment will also have to root you somewhere. That processing, that rooting, and the openness to another language, the global language, all these things will have to happen in tandem. So that is where it's a challenge now for not just the Assamese community, for rest of us also, for the rest of the region also. That you have to know a global language, you have to know, but you also have to take pride in what you have, or not just take pride. When you take pride, when you know what it is, okay, it's not just the empty pride. It's also what they stand for. What is it? So that's a challenge, I think. Yeah, we will all communities are facing it, and I'm very hopeful that certain things will remain as they are.
So I think we can just start by celebrating the places around us. Maybe the river that flows near my house, or if I'm from a village, at least try to open an Instagram page for that village and post photographs of the village. The different sights and sounds, and the people of the village who lend a warmth and character to that village or the town.
Correct.
At least start with start with social media, start with Instagram posts, start with something, just start celebrating. And yeah, I think
There was recently I watched a film by Rajini Basumatari, Julie. It's the language is both Boro and Assamese mix. The first few moments of the film is only about the sights and the sounds of Assamese village. I was so drawn to it because my father's side, the family is of course very town family, but my mother's side, mother is from a village. My grandfather was a farmer, so so we have seen both the worlds. Okay. So I just saw, I was so drawn to that film because of the sights and the sounds. These are so us. These are so us, you know. So that's what you said is something that we need to celebrate, the various sounds and the sights, that we are there in the, not just in Assam, entire Northeast. It's so unique. It's so unique.
and celebrate all the cities of the Northeast. In fact,
Yes.
celebrate Shillong, celebrate Aizawl, celebrate Kohima. How much do we know about these cities?
Yes.
So it was lovely talking to you, Sangeeta. I think we're running out of time, and
Thank you so much.
yeah, a lot of people are watching. Thank you so much for watching us. This Colleen is a friend from New York. She's a writer. She says, "Thank you, beautiful spirits in these two women." Thank you so much, Colleen.
Thank you.
And yeah, so yeah, a lot of people are watching, and thank you everyone for watching. I'm just watching it, just trying to check if there are any questions. Uh, Karishma Hasnat writes, so good to listen to you ladies sharing your stories. So I think we need more conversations. We need we need to talk and share our ideas. And thank you. Wish you
Yeah,
all the
thank you
best
so much.
on your
This is
new book.
great. I mean, it's so lovely to be talking to you like this and putting all this in public domain. What we think, what is. So I'm so happy that this is happening and we are making very good use of technology. But though I want to
Yes.
point out, if I meet Teresa any other day, I'll talk to her in Assamese. And today I did it in English.
Anyway, thank you. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.